Have you ever had that incredibly frustrating experience where you hire a highly paid consultant or like maybe an entire team of them,
Oh, I think we all have.
right? And then you realize you are paying them for weeks just to figure out how your own systems work.
Yeah, it's brutal.
You're just sitting there watching the invoices pile up, essentially funding their education on your company's internal quirks before they even, begin to do the actual job you hired them for.
It is a painfully common scenario for anyone leading a major project today. You bring in this external expertise to solve a critical, time-sensitive problem.
Exactly. Time sensitive.
But instead of getting immediate solutions, you are handed this massive bill for an extended, quote-unquote, discovery phase.
Right. The discovery phase.
Yeah, the consultants spend months just trying to map out the territory before they can even start navigating it.
And that frustration, well, that's the driving force behind what we are analyzing on this deep dive today. We are unpacking a June 2026 article by Suyash Sumaru from Codora.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It's titled From Billable Hours to Scalable Revenue. And our mission here is to explore how AI is fundamentally breaking the traditional consulting model.
Completely shattering it, honestly.
Yeah. We're looking at a massive industry shift from an era where companies simply paid for billable hours to a future built entirely on scalable expertise, concrete outcomes, and reusable intelligence.
And to really grasp why this shift is happening right now,
Yeah.
we have to look at the immense pressure building up in the tech world. The industry is hitting an absolute breaking point.
Especially in certain sectors, right?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly within heavily regulated sectors like banking, insurance, healthcare.
Yeah.
These are industries running on massive, aging legacy systems that desperately must be modernized.
But the old method of throwing armies of consultants at a problem and billing by the hour, it is no longer financially viable.
No, not at all.
Not for the client or, surprisingly, for the consulting firms themselves.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work anymore.
So let's break down the foundation of that old model. Because the traditional consulting equation used to be brilliantly simple, right? Revenue equals hours multiplied by rate.
Right. It's a very straightforward formula.
If a firm wanted to grow its revenue, the path was strictly linear. You acquire more clients, which means you have to take on more projects.
And then you need more people.
Exactly. You have no choice but to hire more headcount so you can bill more hours.
It was a brute force approach to scaling. But, to be fair to the industry, there is a reason it functions so well for decades.
Sure.
If you look back at the enterprise environments of the 1990s or early 2000s, systems were relatively stable. Transformation timelines were often mapped out over 5, sometimes 10 years.
10 years for a tech project feels insane today.
It does. But in that environment, the billable hour model provided incredibly predictable revenue for the consulting firms and transparent, predictable costs for the clients. You knew exactly what commodity you were purchasing. You were buying time.
But time is the one commodity clients simply don't have anymore. The expectations have completely shifted.
They really have.
Today, a client isn't looking to fund a 5-year journey. They demand faster delivery, tighter budgets, clear, measurable outcomes.
Outcomes being the key word there.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. It feels a lot like riding in a taxi where the meter's running. That setup used to be perfectly fine when the roads were clear and there was no traffic. You could literally see yourself moving toward your destination.
You're making progress.
Exactly. But today, the enterprise tech landscape is in absolute gridlock. The legacy systems are the traffic jam.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
And the client is sitting in the back seat just watching the costs tick up and up without getting anywhere closer to the destination.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the mismatch we are seeing is entirely structural. Consulting firms are being asked to deliver significantly more value in much less time.
And the pressure is coming from outside, too.
Right. The catalyst for this urgency is often regulatory. Take a framework like Basel V in the banking sector or HIPAA in healthcare, alongside these constantly evolving cybersecurity mandates.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. And these aren't just polite suggestions from a governing body. Basil V, for example, demands that banks provide incredibly precise reporting on how much capital they hold against their risks.
And getting that data is a nightmare.
Exactly. Because to generate those reports, a bank might have to pull data from 20 different systems, some of which were built in the 1980s.
Wow, the 1980s.
Yeah. So delays in modernizing these systems are no longer just an annoyance, they represent a massive existential compliance
But
risk.
the consulting firms tasked with fixing this are trying to solve 2026 problems with a 1990s operational model.
Precisely. They're using the wrong tools for the era.
So if the projects are taking longer and the meter is running, the logical assumption is that consulting firms must be making record profits. Right.
You would think so.
But the article points out this counterintuitive phenomenon called the profitability illusion. The firms actually aren't making more money.
No, they aren't. And this is where the financial crisis for these firms is hiding in plain sight.
Walk us through that.
So the profitability illusion occurs when firms see top-line revenue growth driven by high utilization rates, meaning their consultants are billing a ton of hours.
Everyone looks busy.
Right. The leadership looks at a spreadsheet and sees everyone is busy, but their actual profit margins remain flat, or in many cases, they heavily decline.
Wait, why is that?
Because the internal cost of delivering those hours is rising in parallel. You see, not all billable hours contribute equally to value creation.
Right, a massive portion of those hours are just pure friction.
Exactly, pure friction. The hours are consumed by necessary yet entirely non-differentiating activities. The biggest culprit driving this friction is what the article calls the legacy trap.
Legacy trap.
Yeah, when a firm is hired for legacy software modernization, they are dealing with systems written in COBOL or running on decades-old mainframes. And the hallmark of these systems is what software engineers call tightly coupled architectures.
I think we need to visualize what tightly coupled actually means for the listener.
Sure.
Because these 40-year-old COBOL systems, everything is tangled together like a giant bowl of spaghetti.
Yes, the classic spaghetti code.
Right. If a developer tries to update a seemingly isolated tax calculation module, they might accidentally break the employee payroll system because the code is so interwoven, you can't just pull out one noodle without dragging the rest of the bowl with it.
That is a highly accurate way to describe it. And making matters worse, these systems are notoriously poorly documented.
Oh, bet.
The original developers who wrote the code likely retired 20 years ago. So the talent pool of professionals with deep native expertise in these specific legacy systems is shrinking rapidly.
Which makes them very expensive.
Exactly. The few who remain command massive premium salaries.
Wait, I have to push back on the economics of this.
Okay, go ahead.
If these legacy experts are commanding such premium salaries, why are the firm's margins shrinking? Shouldn't the firm just charge the client a higher hourly rate for that specific expert?
Well, they do charge a higher rate, but the issue is what that expensive expert is actually spending their time doing.
Oh, because of the lack of documentation.
Right. Because these old systems lack documentation, those highly paid senior experts are pulled into extremely low-leverage tasks. Instead of actually rewriting the code or designing the new architecture, they spend their first 6 weeks manually tracing dependencies.
Just reading old code.
Exactly. They are opening hundreds of files, hitting Ctrl+F, writing notes on a physical legal pad, and trying to reconstruct missing knowledge just to establish a baseline understanding of what the spaghetti code even does.
Wait, so these highly paid senior experts aren't even doing the complex transformation work. They're essentially doing digital archaeology just to figure out what the old code does.
Digital archaeology, exactly.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You are hiring a master architect to design a state-of-the-art skyscraper, but you are forcing them to spend the first 3 months digging the foundation out of the dirt with a hand trowel.
And that archaeology causes a massive ripple effect across the entire consulting firm.
How so?
Well, because your senior talent is bogged down in manual discovery, your junior and mid-level team members are sitting underutilized on the bench.
No, they can't do anything yet.
Exactly. You are paying their salaries, but they can't start coding because they lack the necessary context to help. They just have to wait for the senior expert to finish drawing the map.
Which takes weeks or months.
Yes. So the firm's revenue is technically going up because hours are being billed, but the delivery costs, the salaries of the experts and the idle time of the junior staff, they increase at nearly the same rate. Margins are compressed, and the entire model introduces massive friction at scale. Man, so if throwing more expensive humans at the problem is actively destroying profit margins, the fundamental business model is broken. Firms can't just keep raising their hourly rates indefinitely because clients will eventually just walk away.
Exactly. They hit a ceiling.
So how do they survive this shift?
They survive by changing the underlying math of their business. They have to abandon the old equation of revenue equals hours times rate and adopt a new equation.
Which
Revenue equals output times efficiency.
output times efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental shift from a labor-driven revenue model to a leverage-driven output model. In this new paradigm, time is no longer a metric to maximize. Time becomes a constraint that you have to optimize.
So what does this all mean? It sounds to me like moving from artisanal craftsmanship to an assembly line.
I like that analogy.
Under the old model, every single modernization project is treated like a bespoke, hand-carved piece of furniture. It takes months, it requires a master craftsman, and it's incredibly expensive.
Right.
But the new model sounds like an industrialized, repeatable system where knowledge itself becomes the assembly line.
The assembly line analogy captures the operational shift perfectly. In practice, this industrialized system requires a few core things.
Like what?
Well, structured analysis to speed up the discovery phase, standardized processes that reduce variability from one project to the next, and smaller, highly effective teams.
Okay.
But the most crucial element to making this work is knowledge reusability.
Reusability. You know, it seems to me the fatal flaw of the artisanal model isn't just the time it takes, it's the brain drain.
Exactly.
Once that expensive senior consultant finally figures out the client's spaghetti code, completes the project, and logs off for the last time, their mental map of that system just vanishes. The knowledge walks out the door with them.
That is the core vulnerability of traditional consulting. Knowledge is completely siloed. It lives inside an individual consultant's head, or maybe it's buried in a disorganized project folder that no one will ever look at again.
Just rotting in a shared drive somewhere.
Exactly. When the engagement ends, that hard-won, incredibly expensive context is lost. But in a scalable model, firms treat knowledge as a reusable, appreciating asset.
Appreciating. That's a huge difference.
It is. System mappings, business logic rules, and transformation patterns are digitally captured and carried forward into future engagements. This creates a compounding advantage. You are never starting from scratch.
Sure, you are building on the foundation you already dug. But to build this knowledge assembly line, you need the right machinery.
You do.
You can't just send out a company-wide memo telling people to, be more efficient and share your notes. If we've established that paying humans to manually dig through this code spaghetti is destroying profit margins, the obvious question is, how do we automate the digging?
And that's where the machinery of AI comes in.
Yes, the leverage layer.
Which brings us to the core technical shift outlined in the article. Modernization is no longer just about writing a script to translate old code into new code.
Right, it's much deeper than that.
It is about deeply understanding the legacy system first and preserving that institutional knowledge. The article introduces Codora as a primary representation of a new category of tools acting as an operational leverage layer.
What did that leverage look like?
Well, Codora provides AI-driven code analysis, generation, and contextual understanding of these massive legacy systems.
Let's break down the mechanics of how this actually works, because it sounds a bit like magic when you just say AI-driven analysis.
Fair enough.
Instead of a human opening a file, reading it line by line,
Yeah.
and guessing how it connects to the rest of the system, what is the AI actually doing?
Well, the AI operates at a scale and speed that a human simply cannot match. It ingests millions of lines of legacy code simultaneously.
Millions of lines.
At once.
Instantly. And it doesn't just read the text. It builds a massive semantic graph of the entire application. It maps the hidden data flows and instantly flags dependencies across the entire system. So it untakes the spaghetti.
Yes. It can definitively say, hey, if you change this variable in the accounting module, it will alter the outcome of this specific calculation in the HR module.
Wow.
It maps in seconds what would take a human team weeks or months of manual tracing.
Wait, I have to push back here.
Okay.
Isn't that manual human discovery phase necessary for accuracy? If we just hand a massive undocumented banking system over to an AI where a single error could cost millions of dollars, aren't we risking the AI hallucinating a false map of the code? You can't have an AI just guessing how a financial ledger works based on statistical probabilities.
That is a critical distinction to make. We aren't talking about a standard large language model guessing the next word in a poem.
Okay, that's what I was picturing.
Right, but when tools like Codora analyze code, they're using deterministic mapping combined with AI. Yes. Code is logical. It has definitive rules, syntax, and execution paths. The AI is statically and dynamically analyzing those actual paths. It generates comprehensive documentation, system diagrams, and contextual insights based on the reality of the code, not a generative hallucination.
Oh, I see.
It acts as an intelligent, incredibly fast interface between the consultants and the undocumented codebase.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the AI is doing all of that heavy lifting, if it's building the map and generating the documentation instantly, what happens to the junior consultants? We talked earlier about how they were sidelined, just waiting on the bench because they didn't have the context to help the senior architects.
This is where the model truly scales. The AI fundamentally democratizes the system context.
And what does democratizing context actually look like in a real office setting?
It means the 24-year-old junior developer sitting in a cubicle suddenly has the equivalent of a 30-year COBOL veteran looking over their shoulder. Yeah, explaining exactly what the code means and how it interacts with the rest of the system. Because the AI provides that instant translation and context, junior and mid-level consultants can contribute effectively right from day one.
They don't have to wait for the map.
Exactly. They are empowered by the system. They aren't a bottleneck anymore. This allows the consulting firm to deploy a leaner, less top-heavy team while actually producing higher quality output at a much faster pace.
Look the math on that.
Yeah.
If you zoom out and look at the business impact for the consulting firm, the metrics completely transform. Your revenue per employee goes through the roof.
It skyrockets.
Because each person, whether they are a senior architect or a junior developer, is generating vastly more value without working more hours.
And crucially, the margins expand because the non-billable overhead drops significantly. You don't have a bench of idle employees waiting for instructions. Furthermore, your project turnover accelerates. You are completing these massive modernization engagements in much shorter timeframes. And because you are using an AI leverage layer, you are doing it without having to hire an army of new people.
You break the cycle.
You have successfully broken the linear relationship between headcount and growth.
This is huge.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this right now and you are a project leader, an executive, or you are in the position of hiring a consultancy, this completely changes how you should evaluate a potential partner.
It really does.
You shouldn't be judging a firm by their headcount or their sheer capacity to throw bodies at your problem. You need to evaluate them based on their capability.
Yeah.
You should be asking, what is their leverage layer? How good are their internal systems at mapping our code? Are we paying them to learn, or are we paying them to execute based on reusable intelligence?
And what's fascinating here is the competitive gap in the market is widening at an incredible pace right now.
Oh, I'm sure. The early adopters must be pulling ahead.
Exactly. Early adopters of this AI-driven, scalable model are completely redefining what clients expect. Once a client experiences the speed, transparency, and outcome certainty of a leverage-driven firm, once they see that they don't have to pay for a 6-month open-ended discovery phase,
They'll never go back.
they will never go back to the old way. Traditional firms that rely on manual discovery are going to find themselves forced to compete on a structurally disadvantaged footing. They will be too slow and entirely too expensive.
Because the core leadership question for these firms has fundamentally shifted. The goal is no longer, how many skilled people can we aggressively hire in the next quarter?
Right.
The question that determines survival is now, how effectively can we scale the expertise we already possess?
Consulting is undeniably evolving. It is moving away from that artisanal, people-centric model into an industrialized, system-supported one.
Yeah.
Firms that refuse to adapt to this reality will only be able to grow as fast as they can hire. And given the severe talent bottleneck regarding legacy systems, trying to out-hire your problems is a losing game.
It's totally unsustainable. So, to bring all of these threads together for you, we've explored the inevitable collapse of the traditional billable hour, especially when it collides with the absolute nightmare of tightly coupled, undocumented legacy systems.
The spaghetti code.
The spaghetti code, exactly. And we've unpacked exactly how AI platforms, like Code are stepping in to act as the machinery for a new kind of assembly line. They are shifting the entire tech consulting industry from a focus on sheer capacity to a focus on scalable capability, turning deep niche expertise into something that can be reused and compounded.
And looking at this transformation raises a fascinating, perhaps slightly uncomfortable question that is really the natural conclusion of this entire shift.
Ooh, what's that?
Well, if AI allows these consulting firms to perfectly capture, systematize, and reuse their deep expertise across all their engagements.
Right.
If their real value shifts from the hours their people work to the intelligence embedded in their internal platforms, at what point do these traditional service-based consulting firms actually just become software companies themselves?
That is an incredible point to leave on. I mean, if the value is entirely contained within the platform and the reusable intelligence it generates, the boundary between a service firm and a product firm completely devolves.
It really does.
Next time you find yourself stuck in gridlock, watching that proverbial taxi meter run up on a massive project, ask yourself, are you paying for the time or are you paying for the outcome? Keep questioning the way work gets done. See you on the next deep dive.